let's return to the big story of the day, the overhaul of the RBA. This would see employment, full employment, become an official target along with inflation. There'd also be a second board set up just to deal with monetary policy. To discuss this and other big news in the United States, let's bring in the Australian newspaper's Washington correspondent, Adam Creighton. So great to see you, Adam. Firstly, what's your view of the RBA recommendations? And we should point out that you used to work at the RBA.
Well, look, I think it's fairly marginal, really. I mean, the RBA already has hundreds of economists who are looking at this issue all the time, thinking about it all day, and this is just going to create a new board, another 10 people, if you like, paid by taxpayers when we already have a Reserve Bank board. There's really no evidence, if you look around the world, that having more experts are necessarily going to make better decisions. I mean, of course, experts got the global financial crisis wrong. They got many aspects of COVID wrong. So I do understand why the government's doing this. There's a political perception that Phil Lowe made a big error, and so they needed to do something. And so this is what they've done. They're going to change things. But at the end of the day, it's really not going to change the outcome very much. And indeed, the press conferences that they're thinking of having could actually confuse the markets, because you end up the governor saying something that he didn't want to say, and that confuses things. And so I think there was some virtue in actually not having a press conference, but that's just my personal view.
All right. Well, former PM Kevin Rudd today met Joe Biden, this officially beginning his posting as Australia's ambassador to the US, one of the single worst decision Anthony Albanese has made as Prime Minister. Rudd brushed off suggestions that he might have some enemies in the US. Look, how would this work if Trump did get back into the White House?
Well, look, certainly when Rudd was appointed back in December, the polls were suggesting that Trump had no chance. But the reality is now he's the front runner for the nomination, and the Republican Party will eventually rally around him, even if they don't want to. And that's certainly going to make things awkward for our ambassador, who has called Trump a traitor and used all sorts of extreme words. And so I really think that Rudd would be certainly much regretting some of those statements, which will be remembered by the Republican Party.
Yeah, I noticed today that in that brief press conference that he had with his wife, Therese, outside the White House, he announced that Joe Biden was going to be visiting Australia in the next few months. I think that's already a faux pas, because that's the sort of announcement that Australian prime ministers would like to make when a US president is coming to visit here. But Rudd has stolen Albanese's thunder. Now, you went to a fascinating political launch today, Adam Creighton. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he's officially challenging Joe Biden for the 2024 Democratic nomination. Here's a snippet.
I've come here today to announce my candidacy for the Democratic nomination. My whole family, including myself, have long personal relationships with President Biden. Many of my family members are working in the administration.
Do you think he has a chance?
Well, look, he has a speech impediment, but he's still a very good orator. He spoke for about 2 hours in a packed hall in Boston. I think there were about 1,000 people there, lots of fans, obviously. Look, this is the fourth Kennedy, obviously, to run for the presidency. I don't think he has much of a chance, but the mere fact that he's running suggests that Biden is a very weak president, and he's already polling at 14% Kennedy, which is pretty extraordinary given he hasn't even started yet, really, and he's coming up against an incumbent president. I mean, I think actually Kennedy could give Biden a run for his money if no one else enters the race on the Democrat side, because he's a very good speaker, he's got a very famous name, he's a very likable person. I mean, he has some crazy views on vaccines here and there, but he's been consistent, for decades. He has a lot of integrity, and he's really a 1960s Democrat. He's big on free speech. He's very anti-government. So it just remains to be seen. Certainly lots of Republicans like him, and they're going to vote for him in the primary, so that will actually help him as well. But look, it was a fantastic experience, and I was very lucky to be there.
Now, Adam, just to cover the full gamut of topics tonight, you reported on COVID lockdowns extensively when we were all in lockdown here in Australia. You wrote a fascinating piece this week on how there were so many attacks on you personally.
Yeah, look, there certainly were. It was a pretty harrowing time 3 years ago once I wrote that column in The Australian. I mean, as you know, Sharri, I had to change my name on Facebook because I was getting so many horrible, awful messages, and some of them were so bad I actually considered legal action. I mean, I'm not asking for sympathy. It's really just, kind of reflective of how crazy that era was, and very sad in many ways. I think I've been totally vindicated by what I was saying in ways I couldn't have even imagined at the time. I mean, who would have thought that Sweden, which was criticised relentlessly, would actually end up with the same amount of excess deaths as Australia, which basically blew $500 billion of public money up against the wall. I mean, it's just insane. And I think you'll find not many people in Australia will really want to talk about our response in the coming years.
All right, Adam Creighton, such a pleasure to speak to you from Washington. Thank you.